how's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it with the latest New York Metropolitan pregame show presented by BetUS TV and SeatGeek that we'll get into in a little bit. But before we do, folks, let's get into what today's topics are going to be, what we have to break down with each and every one of you, because this is not your typical pregame show that we have today. We have some unfortunate news to get into and a lot of key roster updates that we're going to talk about now. I'm also going to rehash these in our video that'll drop in the AM with a bunch of other topics for each and every one of you. But what we know to this point is that AJ Minter went down just about 48 hours ago or so with a lat strain. Come to find out per Carlos Mendoza today, that's a significant lat strain and that there is potential that AJ Minter's season could already be done before it basically even got started. Minter could face a season-ending surgery, which would be absolutely brutal to him, to us Mets fans, obviously. And on the same day that we find out this news that AJ Minter's year might be done already, so the Mets would be losing their best high-leverage arm there, that's a southpaw in this bullpen, they have officially signed Brooks Raley today and have made it known that he is on the 15-day injured list, meaning that everything is expected for Brooks Raley to return to this Mets bullpen before the month of July. So that is encouraging news, but still, it looks like the Mets are going to be without a dominant southpaw in their bullpen for at least the next month and a half. And what are they going to be able to do to salvage that loss? Is it going to be internal options, external options? We're going to talk about that in this show as well as our video that'll drop in the AM tomorrow, because I know that a lot of you guys aren't going to pay attention to the pregame segment after it's been live, because you guys aren't going to realize that's more than just a pregame show and you're just going to focus on the postgame segment later. So we have a lot to get into on that front for the bullpen. And speaking of the bullpen, Jose Urena has officially been designated for assignment by this Mets team. This comes after allowing 5 earned runs and 3 innings of relief for the Mets and their 19-5 victory yesterday. Urena came in as a true innings eater, and given the fact that he wasn't on the roster and didn't have any minor league options, the Mets had to make this move while calling up veteran right-handed reliever and Kevin Herget. And a fun little fact about Kevin Herget, everybody, is that this is a reliever that is not only a New Jersey native, but grew up idolizing guys like David Wright. So very cool little story with him. We'll see how he does. And the immediate counter to Wardy, why didn't the Mets bring up Danil Nunez instead of this guy Kevin Herget? And his simple reply is the Mets are only going to have Kevin Herget up for a day, because tomorrow they're going to activate Brandon Waddell as he will be the starter, or come in, say, after an inning of work from Huascar Brosman or someone else spot starting things, just like the Justin Hageman situation in Minneapolis that we saw a couple weeks ago. That's more than likely what's going to happen. So Nunez, the Mets want up while they make a corresponding move. That is not going to be one that's going to have them wanting to maybe send Nunez down shortly after he first gets up here. The point to bring up Nunez is for him to stay and not to be up here for 24 hours the way that Jose Urena was yesterday and the way that Kevin Herget will inevitably more than likely be today. So guys, now getting into it, let's break down what we got here from the left to the right between these laps between the Mets and the Diamondbacks in this one. But before I do, let's do a quick roll call here in the live show. Thank you all kindly for smashing that like and subscribe on as you first chime in. It really does mean a lot. Going to do the roll call here in a second as well, because I want to shout out my awesome friends here that many of you guys know well here at BetUS TV. BetUS TV has you covered with all the latest odds, lines, and picks. And folks, obviously, MLB Player of the Day from the past 24 hours goes to BrandonYNM. Look at these numbers from Brandon that we saw the past day. 9 RBIs, 2 home runs, a grand salami, and of course, he's not in today's lineup, but there is valid reasoning as to why. I initially didn't realize what it was, but once we found out the news, I completely understand it. We'll talk about Nimmo in a second, but for all the latest odds, picks, lines, you name it there, especially if you guys want to sprinkle some dollars on some bias bets, make sure you do it responsibly first and foremost, but secondly, if you do, make sure you do it with our awesome friends here at BetUS TV. They got you covered. Now, as we continue on, everybody, I got to go through here everybody in the chat right now. We got Triple Crown Media. How we doing? We got Leo, great member, going up the list here. We got RZ, great member. We got Sean Daniels, great member. We got Leo, DMAC, how we doing, baby? And I know you talked about Herget as a lefty. Yeah, we were both wrong, because I should have known better too, because I watched 2 games this year for AAA Syracuse where Herget pitched, and he wasn't a southpaw neither of the time. So it's okay though, but good call on your end for thinking that he would get the call, because he did. Brian, my moderator, how are you, brother? Thank you so much for chiming in. You're going to the game tomorrow. Hope you have a blast. Good luck. Corbin Burns versus Brandon Waddell could either be a disaster or it could be a really entertaining ball game. Shrek's great member. Peter, how we doing? Tim, JR, Mike Flanagan, Alan, John, Zach Flakerton, Julio, everybody, and your mother, thank you guys kindly for chiming in. We really appreciate it, folks. Now, let's get into this one, and let's first break down the following news. Because as I relayed, we have Jose Urena, Kevin Herget, AJ Minter, what the Mets will do in that spot outside of Brooks Raley, because he's not immediately returning to this Mets bullpen yet, obviously. We're going to talk about what is going to happen next for this Mets team on the bullpen front, not just now, but we're going to go deeper into it a bit in our video that'll drop in the AM, because I did just record for you guys a really fun segment with someone in the Mets space that you know well and has been on the platform over the past couple weeks in our Big Mets Updates video dropping tomorrow. So be on the lookout. It should drop right around 10 a.m. Eastern, barring changes. But getting into this one now, everybody, taking a look at the lineups to the left and the right of me, let's break them down here. Because starting with the Arizona Diamondbacks, as we talked about briefly in our video that dropped earlier, this is a Diamondbacks team that is number one in baseball in average runs per game, going back to the start of last season, at 5.5 runs per game. Now, fast forward to present day, this Diamondbacks team, even without Ketel Marte in the lineup due to injury, are still off to a roaring hot start with guys like Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez helping lead the way. Perdomo is batting leadoff there at shortstop, but at just under 800 OPS. We have Corbin Carroll off to a roaring hot start, having a tremendous pace, looking like he's going to have more home runs than any other season in his career for the young five-tool talent in the outfield, over 1,000 OPS commanding right. Batting third is Randall Grichuk. Grichuk, known as the lefty specialist. Let's see how David Pearson does going toe-to-toe against the veteran outfielder / DH. Batting fourth is going to be Lourdes Gurriel Jr., a bat that was probably dealt a little too soon by those Toronto Blue Jays, as he and Gabby Moreno are batting in the order here 4 to 6 in this one. Gurriel, always good, off to a slower start this year, but is a lethal bat that can punch out 20-plus bombs a year and certainly be serviceable down the stretch come playoff time. He has a 540 OPS so far out of left field. Batting fifth is the home run leader in all Major League Baseball right now, after having himself a not one, not two, not three, but 4 home run day that we saw not all that long ago. And just like that, Eugenio Suarez is now at the league lead with home runs and has an 870 OPS, commanding the hot corner, batting fifth. Batting sixth is Gabby Moreno, former top prospect of the Toronto Blue Jays, but along with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. was in that key trade a couple years ago for Dalton Varsho, which has aged unbelievably well for Arizona. And for Toronto, you can ask Toronto Blue Jays fans how they feel about that. But Moreno here with a 570 OPS, batting sixth there at the catching position. Batting seventh, we're going to have Mr. Pavin Smith, or Pavin Smith, however which way you'd like to pronunciate it. There with over 1,000 OPS, roaring hot start for the first base option there. So between himself and what they get in Mr. Naylor, it seems like that they are off to a fine start at first base without Christian Walker, who has now signed a 3-year deal with a good amount of AAV with the Houston Astros. Batting eighth is Taiwa there at second base with his 844 OPS. And batting ninth is Barossa with his 250 OPS. Underwhelming start there for, I'd assume, the speedy outfielder that's more known for the glove than the bat, and commanding center. Your pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks today is Mr. Eduardo Rodriguez, the former World Series champ during his time with the Boston Red Sox, and has had success in many avenues, including his time with the Detroit Tigers, to the point where he even denied a trade to the Dodgers 2 years ago because he didn't want to move his family mid-season. Very savvy move by Erod, and now he has signed a multi-year deal with Arizona. Last year fluctuated with his health, obviously, and his effectiveness. This year, though, trying to get off to a better start, and honestly, he has. The expected numbers are definitely in favor of the veteran southpaw Erod, who currently has a 4.4 ERA, but a 2.87 expected ERA. He's quite the opposite of David Pearson, who every year does Houdini magic to work out of jams, and Pearson still finds himself usually with expected numbers not as favorable as his baseline numbers, meaning luck is on his side with great defense from guys like Lindor behind him, and also just, again, just working out of jams somehow, some way. That is the Peterson way. And getting onto this Mets lineup, everybody, and then I'll gladly get to a bunch of your comments here in the chat, so be on the lookout for it in a second, folks. We have Francisco Lindor batting leadoff. Lindor there with an 840 OPS, commanding shortstop. Lindor didn't do too much in this past series against the Nationals, excluding the one game where he had 3 hits. So I'm curious to see what Lindor will do in this matchup back home to what I'm sure is going to be a roaring loud crowd at Citi Field. Doesn't matter that it's only a Tuesday night. We know they're going to show up big time like Mets fans have done all season long for the most part. Batting second, we have the one and only Juan Soto. Soto, who has not hit a home run since that series in Minneapolis against the Twins, is looking to hit his first at Citi Field, which could begin as soon as tonight. Lefty-lefty matchup against Eduardo. Batting third is the Polar Bear, our MVP candidate to lead the season outside of Lindor, and that's Mr. Pete Alonso. Alonso continues to be productive, had a nice base knock for an RBI up the middle yesterday, and every day it feels like Alonso's doing something right, even if he has cooled down a little bit from what has been an otherwise otherworldly start to the season. Batting fourth is going to be Starling Marte, and I'll tell you guys right now, I have less of a gripe about who's at DH as I do the placement. I told you guys all so much how much I love the lineup yesterday with Acuna batting ninth, Nimmo at sixth, and DH, Winker made sense where he was. I do not like having Starling Marte at his 574 OPS and his slap hitting self because he fluctuates with the power. As I say this, watch him hit a nuke tonight, so maybe I'm calling it right now. But I don't love Marte in a key position where he's going to have guys on base. I really don't love that. I'd prefer if he was lower in the order. I'd really prefer if he's where Nimmo was, because Nimmo isn't in today's lineup because he has a stomach virus. Sadly, Brandon Nimmo is now the sixth Met this season to sustain a stomach bug. So after a fantastic day, final game there in D.C., Nimmo's flight home probably wasn't all that comfortable, I'd imagine, to a degree, and he is at least going to be available off the bench today, but, having a little bit of an upset tummy while doing so. So Starling Marte gets a start batting fourth. Let me know how you guys feel about that. One of my few critiques with Mendy today. Batting fifth is Mark Vientos there with his sub-700 OPS at the hot corner position, and I got to say, Mark Vientos is looking more and more and more like himself, and that's great to see. He's spreading for all fields, and he's making an impact what feels like on a daily basis now. That's fantastic. Batting sixth is Luis Angel Acuna. Acuna, who drove in a run yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, got on base at least 3 times. Acuna continues to deliver with his 711 OPS commanding second base. What I love also is that Acuna is in today's lineup, and I don't want to say that I love it over McNeil, but I love the fact that the Mets are making sure that Acuna is getting in there, even when Jeff McNeil, after a great day yesterday, probably should have been in the lineup today. I mean, there's definitely a rightful argument that you should have had McNeil in the lineup against Erod, because McNeil hits lefties very well for the most part in his career, just like Brandon Nimmo, but Nimmo's sick, and McNeil had a home run and a triple yesterday. Why not put him in the lineup today? But Carlos Mendoza is heavily favoring the overall numbers of Eduardo Rodriguez. From a left-handed batters to right-handed batter splits over the past couple seasons, they heavily favor right-handed batters versus lefties. So the Mets are basing the numbers. So regardless of McNeil's success against lefties and how he fared yesterday, he is not getting the start today because they want to put Tyrone Taylor in there, who can certainly try to drive one out against Eduardo Rodriguez. And hopefully that happens for Tyrone. I think the biggest critique that I have today is that knowing that Nimmo isn't in the lineup, it's hard, in my opinion, to justify not having McNeil starting even in left field today over Jose Alzcar. Because while Alzcar has been productive while he's been in there, I just don't see why you wouldn't try to maximize the value of a guy that's getting hot the way that McNeil is, the way that Alvarez is, and it's happy to see Alvarez in there. Torrens will probably start tomorrow's game, or at absolute worst, he will certainly start the series finale. But maybe Torrens will start tomorrow with Waddell on the bump. I'm curious to see how that's going to go, or if they have him go for Senga's start. But also, Alvy catches Senga really well, too. So it's like potato, but kind of fine either way. But Ascar's batting ninth there for the Mets after Taylor is batting eighth. And before that is Alvarez seventh. Alvarez is off to a roaring hot start this season. We know that with a 972 OPS at catcher. Alvarez, who we talked about in our video that dropped earlier today, had himself a home run, a double, and a single over the past 3 games against the Nationals, leading to a series split. And that home run in Game 2 of the series was the ultimate difference maker in that 2-0 victory for the Amazons. Batting eighth is Tyrone Taylor, who can definitely hit lefties well, and will be hunting fastballs from Eduardo in this one. Looking for a meatball, a beach ball is what he's hoping to hit. 468 OPS in center, and Ascar with his 800 OPS, getting a hit off of Ahmad Rosario yesterday that we saw in the 9th inning, commanding left field. Your pitcher is David Peterson with his 3.29 ERA and his 4.38 expected ERA. So with Peterson, as I said earlier, he's definitely a guy that has more luck on his side more often than not, but he's also efficient in maximizing his defense around him. And that's where he doesn't need to be this analytic starling, because he knows very well what he's doing. It might not be sexy, it might not be the most flashy thing, but by God, it works. And for the past year plus now, David Peterson has been one of, if not the most reliable starting option option that the Mets have had in their rotation. So we'll see how Pearson does today. The Arizona Diamondbacks have, by all accounts, not been off to a hot start this year against left-handed pitching in particular. So let's see if this could be a night where Peterson carves out some people, and we go from there. Leo, I love the reference there to UFC. We need to send Minter to Dagestan for 2 to 3 months, and he'll be fine. Yes, that's pretty funny. But I did want to answer someone earlier in the chat that was saying, Wardy, when am I doing playback? Good question. I've been debating what day I want to do playback this week, what works best with my schedule, and I believe I've come to the conclusion that playback on Friday for the first game against the St. Louis Cardinals feels like it's going to be the move. So I think, barring changes, that is what we're going to go with, because it's an 8-15 game. It's a quick turnaround the next day, too. I think I actually like that a lot. And the Padres, by the way, breaking news, just designated Yuli Gurriel for assignment. Completely random, but that just popped up on my phone, so I thought I'd share. He's like 40 years old now, at least, so that makes sense. But yeah, I think we're going to go with May 2nd, this Friday. First game of that 3-game set in St. Louis, where I think Tyler McGill is going to be on the bump for the Mets, which I absolutely love the idea of. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, be on the lookout. I think it's going to be this Friday for our next playback segment. And for those that don't know, playback is a revolutionary sports app that I can't get over, because you can listen to me and a bunch of other creators in the space just break down our own reactions and play-by-play to your favorite team's games. And they're officially partnered with Major League Baseball this season and going forward, which means that all you need is to sign up to a free account, which is linked down below in the description of this live show. Go to playback.tv/WardyNYM. That easy to apply. You go in, you fill out your thing for free, and all you need is your MLB TV subscription. So again, this is not eligible for people who don't have MLB TV subscriptions. I apologize, but if you do, you sign in that way, and you can watch the Mets game live in real time with your guy Wardy. And don't worry, because in case you don't have an MLB TV subscription, but you want to take part in the watch party with us, we're going to be live on YouTube at the same time, simulcasting it, where I'm going to be interacting back and forth from the YouTube chat to the playback chat, as well as reacting throughout the ball game and watching and doing play-by-play while listening to Gary, Keith, and Ron on the broadcast do their thing as they always do, while you guys can tune in too for the playback listeners. And there on YouTube, I'll just have a scoreboard available for you guys to check out. But getting into further here, everybody, on the lineups that we see from both sides. I know that on paper you don't love what you're seeing versus what we had yesterday, but I will tell you that there is context as to why. With the exception of Starling Marte, because I don't love Marte batting fourth. That's like my biggest critique today. And honestly, I love Acuna. Don't know how I feel about Acuna batting sixth. I much rather Acuna bat towards the bottom of the order, but knowing that they have Asgar in here, they don't want to have too many speedy kind of soft contact guys there at the bottom of the order. So I guess I understand it. I would have preferred McNeil and left today, even with the lefty-lefty matchup against Erod. And this is just me being overly nitpicky on the decisions by Carlos Mendoza. So let me just make that abundantly clear. There's not like he's doing anything inherently wrong. Just on the forefront, these are the things that I personally, as a fan, disagree with. I'm curious if Mendy's going to prove me wrong or right as this game goes on. Hasses Cabrera is a lefty, that is true, and the Mets more than likely will consider guys like him, as well as maybe to a lesser degree Anthony Gose and some others there in AAA Syracuse. But for right now, when it looks for immediate options with AJ Minter going down with injury, I think it opens the door greater for someone like Daniel Nunez if it doesn't open the door for someone on the external end. And I'm going to talk about that in greater length in our video that will drop tomorrow, because I know that's going to be a very interesting topic for us to get into, to say the least. And we have a lot of topics to get into. We have something that I'm really looking forward to breaking down with each and every one of you, which has more to do on what the potential future is of SNY, among other things, because that is a big topic as well. So we're going to be dabbling in it all. Big video that'll drop in the AM, just because no point to do it at night when the Mets game's on. Everyone's locked in on the Mets game. That's first and foremost. And the Knicks, too. I got to say, I don't appreciate the Knicks and the Mets playing around the same time when it's playoff basketball time. Listen, I know that some of you guys are Knicks haters and teach their own. Couldn't be me. Diehard Knicks fan. When I say diehard, I'm very casual versus how I am with my Mets fandom, because I just can't watch every Knicks game when I cover the Mets for a living. So that's why I have to watch things on replay, watch the highlights after the fact. But the Knicks have a chance to do something very special today, and that's to secure their first round victory in this one against the Pistons at the Garden. My guy Richie, who covers the Knicks at Knicks Media, is live in attendance today, so I hope he gets to see the W with his dad. I think that's going to be an absolute blast. And anyone else attending tonight's Knicks games or potential future Knicks playoff games, I wish you all the best. I had the privilege of being there in Philly last year when the Knicks beat the Sixers there in Wells Fargo for that round, and that was absolutely electric. Nothing happened to me. I didn't wear any Knicks gear. I was just wearing my Mets black hat and just like my normal Mets outfit type thing, and everything was fine. But Jesse, thank you so much for the membership. I appreciate that. Welcome to the Mets membership. Indeed, my man. Thank you so much. If you guys would like to join memberships as well, please make sure to click that link down below in the description. You guys will have membership options, which will be different emoji options, as well as you get call-outs from me, and you get exclusive perks, including how we're going to be doing a live show. We actually have one coming up over this next week or so be on the lookout. I'll give you guys the official announcement within the next couple days on the community tab, because we have big announcements coming within the next, I'd say, 48 hours, hopefully. That's the goal, 48 to 72 hours. Might be sooner, might be later, on some big things that we're doing this season in regards to just the Mets themselves. And then we're going to get everything unrolling there by doing a live member Q&A session. We did that right before the start of the season, and my goal is to do that for you guys at least once a month at minimum, and maximum multiple a month as long as my schedule allows it, so that way you guys get more of that one-on-one interaction with yours truly, and I can ask you guys how you're doing and really kind of have more of the feel that we don't otherwise have when I have a lot more people in our live shows, because we have just under 200 members currently, which I'm very grateful for. But 200 members, when on average you're only going to have probably a quarter of those chime in the live show to watch it live, versus the anywhere from 350 to 1,000 viewers on concurrent that we get on a nightly basis, depending on if the Mets win or lose. So definitely is a really fun way to interact with me on a more personal level than what you would otherwise get here in shows that we're doing for post game segments, etc. Let's see. The Mentor news really sucked. The win. I know it does suck. Don't get me wrong. I'm bummed to see it 100%. And smash that like and subscribe on as you guys chime in live on a replay. I greatly appreciate that. How do you need surgery on the lat? Kind of unheard of. Apparently, this is what happens when you have a significant lat injury, and whether we like it or not, that is what he's facing. And Nemo does have a stomach virus. That is true, Dave. Happy to have you in here as always. But folks, to expand more on what's happening in Metsland right now, let's take a look and make sure that I personally didn't miss any key updates. I don't believe I did. Oh, yeah. You guys remember one of the great folk hero stories of the Mets last year? It wasn't just the Rally Pimp. It wasn't just Grimace. It wasn't just Mr. OMG. It was also a veteran and Seymour Wiener, who took the entire Citi Field crowd by storm, not just with the name, but also just how much Mets fans jumped on the fun, innocent wave of rallying around him as the Mets were trying to rally as well. And sadly, Seymour Wiener, who was very old at the time of when he was at the Mets game last year, did pass away today. I don't exactly know his age, but I would like to send my condolences to the entire Wiener family, as well as paying tribute to him, not only as a former veteran, but also as someone who obviously had no clue that this was going to happen, nor did Mets fans right away, but they let it become one, and viewing him as one of the multiple folk hero stories that they had and what was an amazing season. I mean, you can't think of the 2024 Mets without thinking of how that season really started with Seymour Wiener, with Rally Pimp, with Mr. OMG, with everything in between. Like, there were so many different storylines that happened that I thought that was really fascinating, and he was certainly one of them. So again, my condolences to his entire family and loved ones in this time of grief. DMAC, thank you so much for the $5 holla. I appreciate that. DMAC says, maybe Alonso, Vientos, Alvarez are positioned like that to the later slot and lefties for all the guys in between. Let's see, maybe. I mean, that's fair. That's an interesting take. So maybe Alonso, Vientos, and Alvarez are positioned like that to later slot and lefties for all the guys in between. So that's fair. Because depending on how long Erod stays in this ball game, the Mets can change things up, right? Like Jesse Winker could enter this ball game by the time we get to the 5th or 6th inning. They really want to do that with Marte. They can also fix things if they want to bring McNeil in for one of Ascar or Taylor. And I think what would be best is to put McNeil in center and shift Taylor to left. Just because, actually, scratch that. Because Taylor never really plays left for the Mets. Whereas McNeil, I was just saying you want to get him more continued reps. And center, should he play there, say coming in later in the ball game to face a better pitching matchup, even though I don't think his matchup against Erod is terrible at all. And I want to double check that right now, if I'm being honest with you, because something about McNeil not starting today just kind of annoys me. I'm pissed about Minter too. Trust me, Julia. It's not official yet, but it's like unofficially official. Carlos Mendoza doesn't go out of his way to let the media know that, oh yeah, he might need season-ending surgery for him to not then have season-ending surgery. That usually isn't the case. It feels like they're just going to prolong the inevitable here. But if we take a look at Jeff McNeil's stats versus Eduardo Rodriguez. Okay, he's 0 for 3. Who cares? He's 0 for 3 with 1 strikeout. Yeah, that's not enough to warrant it. Not at all. BrandonNYM is sick today. That's why he's not playing. Otherwise, I was like, he's 1 for 8 in his career against Rodriguez, but I'm like, that shouldn't warrant it. The Carlos Mendoza is really stubborn today on the righty-lefty matchup. That's what it is. And I will give him credit for most of the time that he has been stubborn on that front so far this year. It has worked in his favor. So it's not one of those things that hasn't worked. But at the same time, it's not always going to work that way, you know? And I'm just kind of, I don't want it to not work for a game, but I'm just saying if it doesn't happen today, I won't be shocked. And I'll be like, this is why you should have had McNeil in the lineup today. But if they hit well without McNeil, then I have little to complain about naturally. Because while Jeff is already heating up 1, which is great to see, I'm really proud of him. Secondly, it's the fact that Jeff is a guy that's been notorious for hitting well in his career against lefties. Regardless of what Erod has or hasn't done against left-handed batters in recent years, I think McNeil is a little bit of an anomaly because of how well his personal approach has been against southpaw pitching. Not just himself, but we've seen it with BrandonNYM too. But actually, I do want to talk about it just for a second, folks, because if we take a look at Jeff McNeil's splits, I'm awfully curious what his career splits are against left-handed pitching. I'm going to do career because I think that's still valid, but then I'll check the past, season and a half or so too. Splits. Let's go to career. Jeff McNeil splits in his career against left-handed pitching. A 288 average and a 742 OPS. The only thing that's down is the slugging, which makes sense. Against a left-handed starter, 287 average. Now, if we look at his splits from last season, granted, piss poor first half, much stronger second half. He had like a 900 OPS in the second half, excluding his injury. So that is notable. Last season, he had the same exact type of splits from righty to lefty, but he was just down across all numbers. So against right-handers, he had a 240 average, and against left-handers, he had a 234 average. So if we go to say, let's go to who's his batting champ season in 2022, and let's see how that looked for McNeil. In 2022, against left-handers, still 312 average with a 758 OPS. So the only thing that hasn't carried has been the power, and that makes sense given that kind of matchup, but he's still been hitting really well, especially opposite field against left-handers. So we'll see if McNeil comes in this ball game or not, but apparently Nimmo was not hitting well at all entering yesterday's game. That's why yesterday was so important to see how he performed, and it was great to see him break out and make basically history for the Mets. That was fantastic. Have to watch a DBacks broadcast tonight since I live in Arizona. I'm sorry to hear that, but at least they're not terrible. I got no ill will with the DBacks broadcast. It's not SNY, obviously, but no ill will with it whatsoever. And folks, I'm not going to be too long-winded with our pregame show today, so if there are any final remarks or questions, concerns that you guys got for me, feel free to relay them now. Outside that, we talked about all the latest updates that we need to get into in Metsland today, with the main one being that Minter is facing a season-ending surgery on that lat, unfortunately. Let's see here. Remember last year when SNY malfunctioned when we played the D-backs and they had to use the D-backs cameras? Yes, I do remember that, as a matter of fact. Was that because they malfunctioned because of the heat, or was it just because they malfunctioned in general? Shrex, how we doing? D-backs have good commentary. Can't. Well, yeah, no, again, I don't have any issue with them. I just don't go out of my way to listen to them much because they're the Diamondbacks and they're on the West Coast, so I don't have as much availability as I'd like sometimes. 19-run game, damn. Yeah, yesterday was a lot of fun. Hopefully the Mets can follow it up. If the Mets could score half of those 19 runs today, I would be ecstatic, or close to, at least, right? I will take a solid anywhere from a 7 to 10 run game today. We'll go conservative. We don't need a 19-piece every day. We just need some runs, and when you actually think about the runs the Mets scored, the Mets have been scoring more runs as of late, and that's what's led them to now being a top 10 team in baseball per Fangraphs, and their offense per FWAR, which is great. The Arizona Diamondbacks are currently third in Major League Baseball in F4. Their offense continues to be consistent, regardless of Ketel Marte being healthy or not. And then when you look on the pitching end, the Mets are far and away the best pitching staff right now. They have over a full one F4 higher than the next team. That's in the Padres. There are almost 6 F4 this season. They're at 5.8 to be exact. The Padres entering today's games, 4.5, tied with, I want to say, the Giants or someone else. Point is, though, is that Mets pitching has been nails, and they may get tested greater than they've ever been tested before this season, and that's going to be interesting to see, mainly because if you're looking at the matchup that you're facing offensively, even without Ketel Marte, this is a lethal Diamondbacks lineup, and as we can see, they can do their damage for sure. I hope Mets fans show out big tonight. I'm sure they're already there and packing Citi Field as we speak. What's the next game I'm going to? Good question, RZ. Next game I'm going to, barring changes, is going to be May 9th against the Cubs. Then I'll be there May 11th for Mother's Day. And then I will be there May 23rd against the Dodgers. We will probably be at one other game as well. I'm going to be heading a game sooner than later with my guy Steve. And outside of that, I think that's it for now. But we're heading probably... My guess is anywhere from 4 to 7 games in May. We're going to be attending a good amount of games in May, which I look forward to a lot. Will I ever do a post game from a road stadium instead of just Citi Field? Absolutely. I have done post games from opposing stadiums before. It's just been more so in a pre-recorded fashion than a live fashion. But I recorded myself exiting Citizens Bank Park last summer after Sevy blew it, after the Mets had a 5-run lead, and he gave up multiple bombs to Bryce Harper, and the boys just unraveled from there. That was Luis Angel Acuna's Mets debut, and he ripped a single up the middle for his first career hit. I was there. I'm very happy to say that. Let's see here on the list. Minter didn't last. I know it's unfortunate. Let's see here. Like Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington. Yep. I've done it all. I've done a video. Did I do a video at Camden? I think I did a video at Camden, even though it wasn't for the channel. I've been there before. Same thing with not only the Phillies, but also the Nats Park. I've done content from as well. I've done live videos there too. That was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoy Daniel Murphy as a broadcaster. I think he's unbelievably articulate. He has such a way of breaking down the game, yet it's simplified that makes the average listener be able to comprehend. I don't think, it's too dull. I will say that I think Murph is better in a 2-booth setting with himself and Gary versus having Ron or Keith along with him. I think there's just too much knowledge going on in that room, and there isn't as much of a cohesiveness because Murph doesn't have the immediate connection that GK and R have, because they've been together the past 20 years or so. So that chemistry is not something that you want to hurt. But if it's just Gary and Daniel, or maybe Gary, Daniel, and Jerry, that could be the future of the ES&Y booth for all we know. I think that'd be fantastic. 2 former teammates of the Mets, and I believe Blevins was a National at one point in his career too, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there because I think he was a Brave, sadly. But point is that those are guys that I grew up watching, especially. I grew to love and hate Murphy at the same time as a player, from his Mets run to then killing the Mets for the next multiple years there that we saw with his time with the Nationals. I hated it. Then I had the privilege of interviewing Daniel Murphy a couple years ago with my guy Anthony Recker and Joe Serralo here on the platform, and to just hear the way that he articulates and breaks down the game. And this was right before he revamped his career and went all the way from indie ball to then getting back to the majors with the Angels, and him deciding to retire all within that same year, just because of the fact that he had the contact ability. He was still sitting right around 300, but the power was completely lost, and he wasn't going to be able to tap back into that like he used to. And that's when he finally decided and said, okay, I know what I can and can't do. This isn't my game anymore for the most part. And he hung the cleats up. But yeah, Murphy as a broadcaster, I think is great. I don't think he's the number one in the world, but definitely a guy that I think is palatable to hear in the booth, especially if you're actually interested in listening to a more recent player point of view on how today's game is, and a lot of guys that he's had the privilege of playing with or against still. I like that immediate knowledge in the booth versus just what we get in GKR, because as great as they are outdated one way or another because they don't have those same firsthand experiences outside of being in the batting cages with the guys, which is great. And they get a lot of insight through people in the grapevine doing their homework too. But I think that actual feel of getting that experience yourself as a player is important too. So I like the balance for sure. Did I come to New York Post Studio in NYC? Omar, yes, I did, as a matter of fact. And I hope you and your family are doing fantastic. Yes, I was at the New York Post Studio just a couple days ago. Got a nice tour of it. It was really nice. We were going to do a segment, but the draft was the next day, and everything was completely booked up. And because the Mets game was a couple hours away, we just figured it'd be best to do it another day, either on a Mets off day or when I'm back in the city. So, yep, next time I'm back in Manhattan, we'll be doing stuff at the studio again. I'm looking forward to working further with my friends at the New York Post again this year. It's been nothing short of a privilege to work with guys like Dexter Henry, Brandon London, and everyone else there that we've seen on the scene. Emma Kate, you know who she is. Not you know, but she knows who she is. All of them have been absolutely fantastic. Just saw the SNY. Yep, Rapid. We're going to talk about that plenty in our video that'll drop in the AM. I just don't want to waste it here because the Mets game is about to start, and that's a bigger discussion for a separate time. Last time where he was at the Citi Field, they had him on the Jumbotron. That is true, Jonathan. I didn't see myself, but they did shove the camera in my face, and I was dapping up and high-fiving the girl behind me, who's actually the girlfriend of a big follower of mine, which was really, really cool talking with him and interacting with him. I was sitting with my guys, Mark and James, that you guys know here in the Mets community, and I think they got caught on camera too, or they should have at least because they're right next to me. But regardless, that I think is going to do it. When you're coming back, I work on the same floor as Brandon in the studio. Oh, Omar. Okay, well, Omar, I'll try to give you a little bit of a heads up next time I'm there. I usually put it out on socials when I do those things, so be on the lookout either on X or there on the community tab, and I'll let you guys know a little ahead of time when I'm doing something next in the city. Should you guys want to bump into me, or in the case of you, if you're actually working there, I'll be happy to chop it up with you. That sounds great. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna get set, and you should get set too for this Mets game that's about to start. Game 1 of a 3-game set against the Mets, for the Mets against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We have Tony the Rubber for the Amazons and David Pearson trying to show that those expected numbers are a fluke, and he is in fact him, versus Eduardo Rodriguez, who's trying to continue his early success this season with the expected numbers and not so much the baseline ERA. I'll see you all for our post-game segment directly after tonight's ball game, win, lose, or draw. And this is your guy Wardy signing out.